Thank you. So, yeah, thank you for coming to the Parallax offices. Because I'm an idiot, I rewrote this talk today, but I'm going to keep it nice and short, and I'm going to be talking to you about mobile app pipelines, because we're building a few apps at the minute. So, a little bit about us. You may already know. We make bits of the internet for money. So we're a digital consultancy, but you get embedded in people's businesses and we help them out with whatever they need, so whether that's a mobile app or some digital transformation or DevOps. We just get stuck in. This is us, stood here where you are. And yeah, a little bit about me if you don't know about me already. I've done some stuff in the past. I wrote JSPDF in 2009, and I haven't done anything since then. I've just been drinking beer. No, I have done a few more things other than that. But it's still one of the most popular PDF generation libraries in JavaScript, and it ruins my life daily. I'm technical director at Parallax. I'm at Mr. Rio on Twitter. But yeah, running the tech side here, alongside Josh Wells, who's over there, who's running the engineering team. I have a podcast with Josh Nesbitt, who runs Haystack and All Day Hay. So this is just me rambling on about stuff. John Milsom's our biggest fan. I think he's the only one that's listened to every episode. Twice. There we go. I haven't paid him to say that, I promise. We've written some pretty cool stuff. So you've seen the labs just sort of here. So we've got a load of street lights in there and an ice bath and stuff. But all the street lights in Aberdeen talk to our systems through radio waves. And every half an hour they tell us how bright it is outside, how much wattage it's using, and we can control them all remotely. Got a bit of a party trick where we can drive down the A64 and turn them on and off individually, which is pretty cool. And yeah, built a mobile app as part of that. We've also invested in startups, which we also built the apps for. So Companions is a way to... It's basically an employee perk for people living in London. So if they need to go away traveling or for work and they have relatives that need looking after, you can get people over and they can cook or play golf or whatever it is. Like it's not care, it's like socializing for older relatives. Kind of hard to explain without making it sound like a dating app, which is part of the problem that they've had. But it's not dating, it's like parent friends. I don't know, I've made it sound worse now. Yeah, so there's that. We built the Enterprise Car Club app, which was a cool one. So you can rock up to a car, unlock it from your phone. The keys are in the glove box. However many hours you're in it, you pay that amount. There's no like messy paperwork with like, you know, the paper copy that you have underneath and all that faff. There's none of that. It's just app only. So, yeah, that were good. And at the moment, we're building a web browser for a startup in Manchester called Chatloop. They're trying to integrate social aspects into the web. So if you can imagine on medium.com where you've got those little highlights where you can comment on the page, it's kind of like that. So you can bring some social into the websites that you're on. If this wants to play, I've got a little video. So the idea is that you can like, loop, yeah, put different kinds of reactions on the page, and that's how it categorizes what you've commented on. And yeah, you can start a little conversation, loop people in. Still very early stages, so yeah, in several hundreds of users at the moment before the big push. So we're on app stores and stuff. But yeah, very early days at the minute. It's kind of taking some elements from like Pinterest, but also like, yeah, other social platforms. cool. Spent lots of money on that video. Probably need to invest more on the PPC, but there we go. What are the problems with mobile app development? Well, it's very different from building a web application, because as you know, web apps are usually nice and easy to deploy. You can just point someone at a URL, and they can just visit it, give you some instant feedback. It's very easy to have multiple builds on different URLs. Everybody knows how the web works. So yeah, nice and easy when you're building a web app. So these. So these are our friends over at Arc Browser, and they're with similar problems as every mobile app team. How the fuck do you get people to download an app, especially when it has enterprise provisioning? They might have to use test flight, they might have to put their phone into development mode, and a lot of people are just sat on their desktops all day, right? So getting people to switch their focus from looking at their computer screen to, oh, I need to actually install this thing on my device, it's actually super hard. So mobile apps, you know, builds produced just in Xcode can be pretty tricky to distribute. Provisioning profiles and certificates can cause headaches. If you're trying to do lots of different kinds of flavors of builds, that can get quite confusing. People don't know what build they've got downloaded. You're asking for more feedback on a new release. They don't know if they've got the new release yet. Like, it's super confusing, like completely different from the web. You can't just ping them a new link in an email and go, click that. And every click that you have from somebody giving you feedback is a gift from God, right? Like, they just want to click one button and go, I hate it or I love it. And that's not the case with mobile app development or feedback. So, yeah, having this sort of longer time to get the feedback causes lots of different issues. One of the problems we've seen is if you've got a developer 1 week or one sprint writing a feature, and then they don't get feedback on it until future sprints, they've forgotten everything they knew about writing that feature. They can't remember how it all worked, how it was meant to work, what they were thinking when they wrote it. So that one-line change bug fix then becomes 10, 20, 30 times harder. So having that long feedback is not great. Other problems we've seen that you can improve on are, error-prone manual testing. So how can you overcome that? And what happens is with these longer cycles and issues when you're sort of building in this way is that developers end up getting scared about breaking the build. So they end up having longer-lived branches. So they'll branch off. They're like super scared about merging this in because last time we did that and everyone downloaded the app, which is super hard to get everyone on the right version. They all complained because it was crashing all the time or whatever. So developers get really nervous. So, yeah, once upon a time. When you start building mobile apps, you do the development, and then you'll do a bit of dog fooding, so you'll really try and push people in the office to download the app. It's really difficult. And then this might be just putting on test flight, for example, but App Store approval, you've got rollout. And then you go into production, and really all you care about are functional stuff. You want feedback on, does this make sense? Would I download it? Would I use it? Would I buy it? And actually you're getting feedback on all this stuff, which is not good. Because the developers that are dog fooding it are on this Wi-Fi in the office, so it's nice and fast. Those API calls are taking 100 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds. On the train, that's 5 seconds. That's causing weird UI issues. React's not syncing up, or your UI's not syncing up properly. It gets proper difficult, and yeah, really nasty to find it here. How do you fix that? Well, sounds fairly obvious, but you shift all that stuff left. So how do we get all this stuff right up into the development phase? And one of the ways you can do that is by automating as much as possible and making that feedback loop as short as possible. So if you can automate performance testing, if you can automate detecting memory leaks, if you can bring all those networking issues and all that testing stuff into this phase here, then that helps. And in your sprint cycle, you want to be getting this right up at the front. So yeah, shift all your functional testing, automated tests up at the front. As well as shifting left, you need to prioritize automation. It might seem painful for new development teams to actually prioritize this, but we've always done this at Parallax. So I think when did we start, Loz? 12, 13 years ago? We had this thing where, like, you commit it, it goes live, it goes somewhere, and that was before people were calling it DevOps or CI/CD. We just called it commit and it goes somewhere. And then things like Jenkins and stuff came along, and yeah, it was good. Another thing you can do is, actually, it's so hard to get people onto a build. Why do you have multiple builds? What's the point? Just have one build, but feature flag. So it's very, very easy to have a short-lived branch with a feature flag on it, merge it in. You can toggle it on and off, and then they can be building that semi-broken feature for a bit alongside all the other code, where the security updates are going, where all the other changes are going. You're getting instant feedback on how it all merges together. What you don't want is this long-lived branch where somebody updates suggest or somebody updates some other dependency, and you're not getting that instant, oh, fuck, it's broken everything. So get it merged in early, feature flag it, and then you can have one build that you give to users and just toggle it on and off. Small, frequent releases is super important. It's so important. If you have a system where you commit and there's any manual process between somebody committing and getting it into someone's hands, there's a problem, because there's going to be another thing to go through, another hurdle. It's already really hard. Don't make it more hard. And then the final one, don't want to teach the suck eggs, but infrastructure as code. If there's any manual process in setting up any of the back-end APIs or databases or any other parts of the system that aren't automated, just lock somebody in a room, do it for a day, just make that automated, and you'll have a nice time. Doesn't have to be super scary. You can just start with the basics. So if you're new to it, it might feel like you're just replacing one set of problems with a completely other set of problems, which you are, but once you get it right, and once you get things moving, it's actually loads simpler. And it really pays dividends quite quickly. As you start to build up what you're doing, you can add new pipelines. Maybe there's a special performance testing pipeline that you don't want it to block the build, but you do want it to run. Make sure all that feedback is visible, it's going somewhere. You've got some sort of, hate the word, information radiator, the term, sorry. But yeah, have that pumped into something or into a Slack channel. Nobody's going to click into this screen because they're working on their feature. So how do we get this out and into users' hands, into developers' hands, sorry. How many of you have built a mobile app? Quite a few, actually. How many of you are using automated end-to-end testing on the mobile app? Nobody. OK, well, you're going to be pleasantly surprised, because this startup has just come out, and they've got the domain mobile.dev. They've got a load of funding, and they've actually made it not shit. So I'm not paid to sell this, by the way. They've got an open source version, so you can run it on your own infrastructure. But the tool's called Maestro. before you might have to use Appium, awful, or yeah, a whole suite of other tools. But it's just nasty, isn't it? Maestro Studio has a load of little tweaks built into it, and they've really thought about the developer experience. So they've got this studio, you run one command, it boots your app up, you can click around it, and it writes your test for you. And it's got nice things like it'll wait for the UI to actually change before it tries to tap and things like that. Stuff where you'd usually have to put like a spin assert or a loop or, God forbid, wait 500 milliseconds into your test and just hope for the best. And yeah, maybe the wind's blowing in the right direction that day and your test does pass. But yeah, they've fixed all that. They've got some really good docs. They do performance testing, memory testing, app size. Yeah, so it's really easy to pop into your pipeline. And as I say, it's open source as well. This is an example of, yeah, if you wanted to write the YAML by hand, sorry for anyone that hates YAML, this is how you do it. You run this command, and it will keep running your test as you hit save, and it'll start from the beginning. But yeah, it's really nice to write. As I say, they've built in a load of nice things so you don't even have to think about. If you try to do this yourself, it's pure pain. Going back to the internationalization talk, if you want to tap on things by accessibility ID, you can do that as well. So you just put the accessibility ID in there, and that might be your I18N string rather than the actual English. And then that makes it more robust for copy changes and things like that. But I think just for their demo, they're like, makes sense to just dump the English in. But yeah, super nice. Yeah, you can tap on things. You can input text. So just by changing this action here, you can change what you're doing. They've actually added some features just for us because we've got some strange interactions in Chatloop with dragging and things like that. So you can drag an accessibility ID to a point on the screen and things like that. But it's nice and easy. This is the studio I mentioned, so you get like an inspector. So the Android emulator and the iOS simulator that you have open in the background, it'll take the screen output from that, feed it into this, and you can see all the things that you could select that element by, and then you choose what you think is going to be the most robust. We put test IDs on things, so it just makes it, you're not going to change your test ID without changing your test, so it makes sense to us. They have built-in GitHub Action pipeline things, so you can just pop in, yeah, test this. They've got a cloud version as well, so if you don't want to run it inside a container, you can do that. As I mentioned, it's got built-in tolerance to flakiness, so it can understand if there's a network request happening. It can understand if there's a little gap with an animation happening. If you're using Lottie, it speeds up the Lottie animation out the box. Pretty cool. So all the little hacks that you might put in if you're using Appium or something, you don't have to do. But yeah, why is this important? Well, really, we want to get from commit to, is this a good build or not, pretty quickly. We've got a few ways that we do this on Chatloop. So we're using React Native. So for the bits that aren't performance intensive, so like the UI that's shared across both platforms, it's all in React Native. So that can be hot reloaded pretty quickly within 30 seconds. It's important to keep that working. Like if you have a dependency that breaks that, ditch it. That is so important. You need to keep that. The GitHub Action builds, you need to make those as quick as possible. So if you can go from cache and inject some bits in, do that. We use a Microsoft product, and Microsoft are actually good now. When did that happen? Hell is actually frozen over. So we use Visual Studio Code, App Center, and Code Push. Code push allows us to go from a commit on a developer's machine into a stakeholder's hands within a couple of minutes, which for feedback is absolutely amazing. And then, yeah, publishing to app stores, you need to automate that as well. And I'll show you some nice tooling for that. Yeah, as I mentioned, the quicker you can get from commit to in someone's hand, the better. Fastlane, who's used Fastlane? Absolutely nobody. Fantastic. So Fastlane originally was a set of Ruby scripts that sort of hacked around the fact that App Store didn't have any APIs. So they basically try and log into the website and do loads of random shit. But Apple does have an API now, so they have a new version which works against the App Store API and also the Play Store APIs. But they smooth over all this weirdness between the different app stores. It's open source. It can do your code signing. It uploads stuff. There's a load of plugins. So there's a pre-flight check plugin, which will make sure that you've followed all the App Store rules. Yeah, you've got plugins to do things like increment app numbers and things like that. As I mentioned earlier, it's really important to get all the information about what's happening on your build into somewhere that's visible very, very quickly. This isn't just for mobile apps. This is true of any app. I think having that easily accessible build failure or build success there ready for people to click on is very important. Again, feedback loops, get them as short as you can. And if you can show the test results in the PRs themselves and set the minimum required tests to pass, like you might set a maximum app size or something like that, like performance budgets you've probably heard of in front-end land. Yeah, definitely do that. Going to talk a little bit about infrastructure as code. This is more of Dan Pegg's domain, who's sat over there, but yeah, we're big fans of serverless framework. We used to use this back when it was called JAWS for the David Guetta UEFA campaign thing that we did donkeys ago before the word serverless was even a thing. Yeah, it's come on really well, and yeah, it can deploy loads of different kinds of back-end workloads. So ideally, you want every branch of your project to make a whole new set of lambdas. Up to you whether you choose to duplicate some of the backing services. Depends. Prod, you probably have one set of these. But yeah, just every commit, you get a complete copy of all the relevant parts that make sense to make your app different from the other build. Reducing the feedback loop further. So instead of waiting for users to complain, get robots to complain at you. Bugsnag or Sentry, just pop it into your app. You can see exactly what went wrong, where the crashes are. Definitely recommend adding some APM. So you can tie into all the metrics on the back end really easily. So you might as well and calculate that score and see how it changes over time. If you want to set performance budgets for that, that's a good idea. And then automatically post issues into Slack channels. You probably have them muted, but you can check in on them, right? I would recommend muting Slack altogether and turning that knock-knock brush noise off, because that absolutely does my head in. But yeah, get it posting into Slack. Bit of a wrap-up then. Mobile app dev is hard, so don't make it harder. Make sure you're getting that app into people's hands as quickly as possible. Start shifting some of this testing left. So if you can automate some of it, use Maestro, use mobile.dev. I think they do actually have a version that can test websites now, which is not just app focused. Deploy little and often. You want deploy to be boring as fuck. You just want to deploy a little bit. And if you've got this huge feature, you want it already deployed, and you just want to toggle it on. And you want your day to go as smoothly as possible. So if you're in the pub on a Friday, you can toggle it back off again when it all goes crashing down. John's laughing at me for some reason. But yeah, automate the boring stuff. So anything that needs to be done manually, write a script, can be hacky as you like to begin with, and then that is good enough, and start building up on it, make it better. And then, yeah, final point, which I've said a few times, just make those feedback loops as short as possible, and you're cooking avec gas, as we like to say at Parallax. So thank you very much. If you've got any questions, you can come over to me or give me a tweet. Thanks very much.